I'm excited because it's that time of year when my girlfriend and I go to Denmark to visit her parents. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing her parents again. I'm looking forward to going through Denmark, going through the various cities, towns, being in the beautiful nature. But I have to say, kind of with a guilty conscience, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is going there and having some of those excellent Danish meals. They're delicious. Now, because I don't live in Denmark, I can't just decide, oh, I want an egg casserole, and then decide, oh, I'll go right now to a restaurant and they'll make it for me. No, I haven't had one since I was in Denmark nearly a year ago. So I have been waiting months for the opportunity to have some of these foods. Here are the meals that I am planning on having when I get back to Denmark. And they're in no particular order, except I'm going to start with the Parisian hamburger beef. Why? Because I have not had this meal. I have tried this meal. My girlfriend and I were eating with her mothers in the Roodhouse Cafe in Aarhus. And I looked at the menu and I thought, oh, it's hamburger. I can get a hamburger anyway. But she said, no, I'm going to have it. It's fantastic. And so she said, well, why don't you have a few bites? Oh my gosh, this was delicious. And the thing is, it's deceptively simple. It's made with hamburger, obviously, and it's lightly seasoned. And then they add these fixings. They're served with capers, raw onions, beetroots, horseradish, and egg yolk. And when I looked at it, I said, oh, this can't be that good. But then when I had it, boy, was it that good. Another thing I'm looking forward to is the egg casserole, or the egg Danish cake. We had one of these in Rio Bravo, in Copenhagen, Rio Bravo, which is named after the movie. And it's a hoot. If you get a chance to go to Copenhagen, go to the Rio Bravo. And they make this wonderful looking egg cake, or Danish egg cake, or egg casserole. You know, the words may get lost in translation, but the deliciousness does not. It bears a striking resemblance to an Italian frittata or Spanish tortilla. It is delicious, and because of its simplicity and versatility, it's a real wonder. Delicious and simple. That's probably why it's so good and why it's made in Denmark, because the Danes like delicious things, and they are very efficient. Now, I'm not sure we're going to go back to Rio Bravo to have the egg casserole. My girlfriend's mother has promised to make one herself, a homemade egg casserole, which my girlfriend says is much lighter and fluffier. And I'm looking forward to it because my girlfriend's mother likes to make traditional Danish dishes. The corn top and the egg flesh, which was absolutely amazing. And my girlfriend tells me that her mother is planning on making some kind of dessert with almonds. No, with walnuts, which she says is very hush-hush and secret because she doesn't know if she's going to make it herself and decide whether she wants to serve it to us as well. Now, her mother makes us traditional dishes. Her father introduced me to the Schnitzel. I am telling you, my girlfriend's father loves a Schnitzel. Whenever he sees that a restaurant is having a special Schnitzel in the evening, he smiles and he insists that we go to get a Schnitzel. It was the first thing that he had us go get when I first went to Denmark. We went to this place. It was on the beach. We dubbed it the Schnitzel Palace. Unfortunately, a pandemic and everything has laid waste to that. But a new place in his hometown of Säby has opened up, and they promise to have a very good Schnitzel. I had one last year, and it was fantastic. Look at that Schnitzel. Yes, people might say it comes from Germany, it comes from Austria, whatever. The Danish people have taken the Schnitzel, and like the Vikings, they made it their own. It is their Schnitzel, and I've had a Schnitzel in Germany. It's not as good as the one I've had in Denmark. Now, one of the other things I'm looking forward to is the meatball, or the frikadelle. Oh, these were delicious. And they're not just like any meatball. They're Danish meatball. I think you can tell a lot about a culture by how they make a meatball. Because this is a delicious meatball. It's not just something like a meatball. Boom. I used to have that when I was a kid in grade school. There was a meatball. I thought that was horrible. But these Danish meatballs are fantastic. I mean, look at it. And I have to say, I like meatballs for a different reason. I find them philosophically interesting because here, it's not just one particular meat. It's whatever meat you want. So not only do you have to choose what meat you want, but then you have to mix it in the way you do. In much the same way, Denmark is such an interesting culture. It is mixed with so many different tendencies. I mean, you have the Vikings on one side who are a marauding band, and then now they're one of the most peaceful countries ever. It's a country that has Hans Christian Andersen and his fairy tales, and Søren Kierkegaard and his existentialism. It's Niels Bohr who brought us into the atomic age. When a country is that interesting, no wonder they make such a good meatball. And they don't just stop at meat. They make a fish meatball or a fish ball. Depends on whether you are comfortable saying fish ball as opposed to a meatball. Because if meatball says meatball, it's fish meat. So why do you have to say meat? Anyway, we had this wonderful fish ball, this meatball. And if you think about it, there are more varieties of fish meatballs than there can be meatballs, because there's pork, chicken, beef, turkey. There's countless fish. You could have a salmon meatball. You could have a haddock meatball. You could have a cod meatball. You could mix them together in whatever whitefish things. So the Danes are not afraid to wade into a huge pile of possibilities when they make their fish balls. And they make all sorts of other things because they are on the coast. So they love their seafood, and their seafood is delicious. One of the things that I had when I was there was the falling star. Now, falling star is flatfish fried and then placed on toast with some caviar sometimes and a mayonnaise or a remoulade. It is fantastic. Another thing I want to have is some mussels from northern Jutland. Denmark makes some great mussels. Now here's the thing about mussels. There's not sort of continuum. You either have bad mussels or good mussels. And bad mussels are horrible. And you can't doctor them up like a piece of dried chicken with some mayonnaise or some gravy. They just are terrible. But good mussels, really good mussels, are delicious. And when you get the chance to have good mussels, you should have one. And that's what I'm going to do this summer in Denmark. Have some North Jutland mussels. Also, there's a place that makes this excellent lobster bisque. Now, unlike mussels, which really the quality is produced while they're grown and harvested, the lobster bisque is more of a craft, more of an artisanal process. And apparently, Danish cooking has grown leaps and bounds since my girlfriend was a small girl. She said Danish cooking was horrible when she grew up. And now they've gone through, I wouldn't even say a renaissance. It's like quantum leaps. I do know that I am going to have another delicious seafood platter from the store, Hob. And I'm hoping when I have it this summer, it's as good as I had it then. I'm also going to get some of these tiny shrimp. Tiny little shrimp. These are tiny because they are harvested around the fjords of Scandinavia and the Baltic Sea. And they're much smaller and tastier than the normal shrimp you find in the United States. Frankly, the shrimp you find in the United States is kind of tasteless. That's why you have to put cocktail sauce on top of it. But not these tiny little shrimps. You can eat them straight out of the jar. Or you can put them in a shrimp cocktail. Or you can put them on an open-faced sandwich. Look at how they are delicious. And I'll tell you something, that reminds me, because not only will I have one of these tiny shrimp open-faced sandwiches, I will have a number of these open-faced sandwiches because they are part of the smorgasbord. My girlfriend's father had one for us last summer. It was delicious. My girlfriend's father gets this wonderful smorgasbord from his local butcher. And his butcher has a great selection of foods, but we'll get to that later. But these open-faced sandwiches are tremendous. There's some egg and a teeny little shrimp. There's roast beef, corned beef. And of course, one of the great Danish favorites is rullepølse. Rullepølse is this special rolled sausage mix. And you can put it on an open-faced sandwich or a cracker. My girlfriend's mother got it at her local farmer's market in Aarhus, and it was just fantastic. Now, my girlfriend says it is a particularly unique Danish specialty. I said, well, I read that they also have it in Sweden. And she says, no, they don't have it in Sweden. If they do, it's horrible. Which made me think, well, you know, there's still a little rivalry between these Scandinavian countries, which is true. Because when my girlfriend told her father that I was part Swedish, he just kind of laughed and said, no wonder he eats so slowly. But then, when she mentioned later on that I was also part Norwegian, he said, Norwegian, does it get any worse? Well, you gotta laugh at it. Now, the final thing I am looking forward to is the Danish buffet. And these people don't kid around. They're not like the United States, which is just trying to throw you a lot of food so they can charge you money and make you think that you're getting a great deal because it's all you can eat. The Danish people do not look at eating their buffet like an endurance competition or a hot dog eating competition. They bring out really excellent foods for you to savor. Her father took me to my first Danish buffet, and it was an amazing experience. And yes, I ate too much. Why? Because the food was fantastic. In some ways, I think the buffet is the most endemic of the Danish meals. Because in a buffet, you can have all these different flavors and you can put them together as you see fit. You get to be a food alchemist for your own set of taste buds. And you can choose from anything. In other words, it's not just having one dish. You are seeing the spectacular possibilities of Danish cooking all together at one moment on one table. Look at all this stuff they put out. All this thinking about food is making me hungry. So I am counting the days until my girlfriend and I head off to Denmark and I begin my food odyssey. Now, I hope there's enough days for all these meals I want. I may not get to them, and that's okay. If I get to enough of them, I'll be fine. But I'm already starting to put together kind of a meal card, like a dance card, so I can make the most out of my time and meals when I am in Denmark. It's going to be delicious. Thank you kindly.